Without a doubt, hypothyroid conditions are the #1 underdiagnosed condition on this entire planet. What I mean by that, if you even look at and consider the AAC, which is the American Academy of Endocrinologists, they actually stated that 27 million people in this country suffer from thyroid conditions. Out of that 27 million people, only 50% of them are actually diagnosed. I mean, so that's a massive number. You have to understand, we understand the epidemic of diabetes, which is probably 15, 16 million people. So in comparison, we're talking about a global epidemic. The saddest part is this: when we say go undiagnosed, here's what they're saying. Women are walking around, not just women, I should say this, men, women, people in this country are walking around with very unexplainable symptoms, unexplained weight gain. All of a sudden they have fatigue, they're not feeling well, brain fog, constipation, hot flashes. I could go on and on. They have a lot of unexplainable symptoms they cannot figure out. They go to their doctor, blood work is normal, and yet they're not diagnosed until perhaps 10, 20, even 30 years later. Then all of a sudden their blood work is now abnormal. What's the reason for that? And I think it's really important to understand this. Look, it's estimated that at least 90% of women over the age of 40 have some type of thyroid or hypothyroid condition. Some estimate that it's 90% of America. I mean, did you hear that number? 90% of America possibly walking around with a thyroid condition or a suboptimal thyroid, causing symptoms that most of which you're taking medication for, or at least chugging down coffee or other stimulants for, and gaining weight unexplainable. Look, one of the problems is this. They say 80 to 90% of those people with hypothyroid conditions is something called an autoimmune condition. What that means is their own body is literally attacking their thyroid. And the unfortunate part about it is that most doctors do not run the correct test to actually identify if you have autoimmune hypothyroid. The reason why they don't run the test, you're probably asking yourself that. It's a pretty simple answer, actually. It's because their treatment's the same. If your thyroid numbers eventually, may take 30 years, like I said, to eventually go off, then they give you the same treatment, T4 replacement hormone. But unfortunately, if you have an autoimmune condition, T4 replacement hormone will do very little, if anything. It's the wrong treatment. We're way downstream. I talked about on one of my past videos, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, why and how stress can cause health conditions. And I talked about the thyroid. One of the things I talked about is in times of stress, your body elevates cortisol. Cortisol actually starts to cause your body's thyroid hormone to convert into a hormone called reverse T3. I kind of have to explain this a little bit like I did on the other video, and I think it's worth explaining. Your thyroid makes two hormones, one of which is called T4. T4 must be converted into active hormone T3. This is a really important point because most doctors are simply thinking the problem is just here, when really the problem could be this conversion right here. Now, there are multiple reasons for this conversion going bad. Matter of fact, the liver plays a role in this conversion. So one of the problems could be the liver. So, again, a mistake that a lot of docs make, alternative and regular doctors, is just thinking the problem is just the thyroid itself. Well, it could also be the adrenal glands and the inability to adapt to stress. Here's why. In times of stress, your body wants to conserve its energy. So I said that this is the active hormone. I'm always drawing cells. Believe it or not, that's a cell. So cells have little hormone receptors, right, that have to talk to the hormones. In this case, it's going to talk to T3 hormone. When T3, produced in your thyroid, combines with the cell, so now we're out here in one of these distant cells, it has to combine to the cell, and the receptor allows it in the cell where it can talk to DNA and do its job. So you can think clear, have good energy, feel good, etc. This is the energy process. So in times of stress, your body wants to conserve energy, so it doesn't want the T3 to get in the cell. So what it does is it takes the T4, and instead of converting it to T3, it converts it to something called RT3 or reverse T3. If I keep moving this out of the frame, it's because I'm not used to that. Everything's backwards. So this RT3 or reverse T3, its job is literally to bind to these thyroid receptors. But what it does, I'll put an R there, what it does, its job is to block the T3 so the T3 can't bind to the receptor and it can't get into the cell. So the body does that because it wants to actually conserve energy in times of stress. Even sickness is a time of stress, or even physical stress. This process of taking T4, instead of bringing it to active hormone, brings it to reverse T3. That blocks the hormones and keeps the active hormone from getting in the cell, and the body conserves energy. The problem is this: if stress becomes chronic, whether it's emotional, and definitely go back and watch that video because I explain it, whether it's chemical. So a lot of people are under chemical toxic stress. And what can happen then is that this becomes chronic, and the stress becomes chronic, and all your T4 is being converted into the RT3. Now think about this. You go to your doctor, and what are they giving you? They're giving you the T4. So they're giving you more and more T4 when the problem is here. So I just gave you two examples of how blood work can be normal, and yet you not feel well and be not diagnosed normally with a hypothyroid condition, or at least diagnosed with a hypothyroid condition. So look, and also an autoimmune condition where your body's attacking it. Also, and I want to point this out too, certain toxins like mercury can come in and bind to these receptors, and even the thyroid receptors themselves. It's called a selenium receptor, and mercury has an affinity for that. And when that happens, it can literally start to cause this autoimmune condition where the body starts attacking itself. And look, the key is this: you have to go upstream and get to the cause. Toxicity and stress can absolutely be a cause of why your blood work looks normal and you're not being diagnosed properly. Look, we don't want to, there's times for medication, of course, and I'm not telling anybody to come off their medication, but if you get upstream and you take away the cause, the body has an amazing way of fixing itself. First of all, you have to run the right tests. How many doctors out there are running reverse T3? How many doctors are running the correct test to identify if you are in an autoimmune state or not? And then it comes down to the treatment. Look, I've said it in many videos. You have to fix the cell. Hormone conditions aren't a problem with hormones. They're problems with the receptors on the cell, and you have to regenerate the receptor. When you regenerate the cell, fix the receptors on the cell, and you actually get rid of the cause, guess what? Magic can happen. You can actually get well. Novel concept. You go upstream, remove the cause, the body has an amazing way of healing itself. I'm going to do more on this concept in the future, so stay tuned for future videos, because I really believe this is really an answer to why so many people just start gaining weight unexplainable, have stress that they can't adapt to. All of a sudden they just don't feel well. They're drinking more and more coffee, taking more and more stimulants. Many people end up with on antidepressants and under other drugs that they shouldn't be on, psychotropic drugs. By the way, these autoimmune conditions, they can actually cause mood problems and hormone problems downstream. So, it's really hard for me as a doctor to see conditions like this go undiagnosed, when really it's just a matter of running the correct tests like we do, and the doctors that I train do, and really getting to the cause. So I know this is going to help. So get the information out there, spread the word, and it will absolutely change lives. Thank you.